All right, Gina Schlicksup. I think I got that right. Appreciate you joining. I know you and I have just been kind of going back and forth a little bit on LinkedIn because I noticed that you had purchased a That One Painter franchise, who I'm a huge fan of, at least outside looking in. I've been following their stuff for a while and love the brand. I love what the guys on the franchisor side have done with the brand and just the overall messaging and what they're doing in the painting space. So it's cool to actually connect with another with a franchisee, a franchise owner inside that space. So without me butchering your intro, Gene, I'll turn it over to you and you let us know a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you're at and what you're doing today.
All right, awesome. So I am Gina Schlicksup. My husband Tony and I bought our first franchise with That One Painter. We signed in July of 2022. And so both him and I are now actively operating that business. And we we have 4 kids. This is a big reason why we bought the business, but we have 4 kids. 10 to almost 17, and they might show up in the background because we homeschool them. But we wanted to find a business that worked for our family goals.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, our family goals were to travel while we still had them
Mm-hmm.
around before they left. So
Yeah.
that one painter kind of fell into our lap, and I can get into that for you. But I think at the core of the reason why we started a franchise was to have some independence and be able to have those experiences with our kids now.
Yep.
So that's kind of where we are.
That's fascinating because yeah, you can imagine probably the questions that are swirling in my head. I've got two young kids, so 2.5, almost 3, and a 14-month-old, and another one on the way. So we're going to be at
Yes.
3 here soon. And just based on what we do in my workload with Junk Raider, just a single location junk removal company. Can't imagine 4 kids, homeschool. Obviously, that dynamic between you and your husband has to be amazing for all that to work. Why don't you take us through, like, what were you doing prior to That One Painter? Is that your first franchise that you've owned, and
It
what were you doing
is.
prior to that?
Yep. So I used to teach. So I was an early childhood special education teacher 20 something years ago. And then when we had our oldest, I started staying at home with them, and I've dabbled in everything. I always say it's too long for me to list. Like, I've been
Hmm.
a realtor, and I started a nonprofit, and the list goes on. And my husband spent years in medical sales.
Yeah,
Um, and that, if you're not familiar with that kind of lifestyle, that one's a little rough because it's a lot
yeah,
of travel.
yeah.
Um, and it's a lot of territory realignment. And like
Mm,
every year it would change. And the time that led up to us getting the franchise, his territory had been realigned once again. And we are down here in Jacksonville, and he didn't have a single account in Jacksonville. So we
yeah.
knew it was going to be travel, travel, travel again. And he was
Mhm.
kind of done with it, as so was I.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. And for the audience, for those, I guess, who don't know much about medical device sales, and I certainly don't either. But my wife was a nurse for a long time, and so she obviously interfaced with a lot of the reps that came in. Like, that is, if you're not managing accounts within the local area, I mean, you're 4 or 5 days on the road every week, Monday through Friday, because it's very hands on. It's different than like what I come from technology sales, but all remote. Like, yeah, travel to see clients like if and when needed, but it's more of a B2B, sale where you can get a lot of that stuff done remotely, and the travel is more just like checking a box if somebody wants it from a relationship perspective. Medical device is very hands-on teaching,
Yeah.
going, like, being in those operating rooms, like showing the product how it works and all that stuff. So I totally get it, and that makes a lot of sense. Can you take us through a little bit the Fran Dev process, or the process on your side of how you found That One Painter, or That One Painter found you, and just take us back to those early days of how that conversation started?
Yeah. So that one painter found us. We weren't even honestly like looking. It's something we've always talked about, owning a business. And my husband likes to paint, but like he likes to paint our house.
Yeah.
I make him paint our house because
Yeah.
we've moved a lot, and so we've made it our own where we've moved around to.
Mhm.
But he got one of those emails on LinkedIn about hey, I have some franchise opportunities. Do you want to look into it? And he
Yeah,
was to that point where he was really ready to look for something new. And so we decided, it wouldn't hurt. So that he responded to that message through LinkedIn, and that kind of started the wheels turning. And that's how we got to where we are now.
that's awesome. So it does work, is what you're saying. For all of us
Right.
on the other side who just send out, I've been huge on LinkedIn for many years, dating back to my tech sales job. It's a different platform to meet folks on that. If you do it right and you have good intentions, those relationships and conversations can come up much more organically than I feel like you probably see on cold emails, cold calls for
Right.
sure, text, all the stuff that we all hate in terms of people reaching out to us cold. So it's good to hear that those messages do get through to folks actually looking into the space. Have How did you land on painting? Because I'm sure once you got that message and you went down that rabbit hole, you probably started to learn about this entire world of franchise brands that you could be doing window cleaning, you could do gutter cleaning, you could do painting, junk removal, you could go into the food side and go brick and mortar. How did you guys ultimately land on not just that one painter, but just the painting industry in general? What attracted you to it?
Right. So when we responded to that email, the guy called us and we talked to him. And what I liked about the process was that he asked, "What are you interested in, and what are you not interested in?" And then he, like, you could do retail, you could do this food service business, right? There's all these things that you could choose from.
Yeah,
And we had said we wanted nothing to do with retail.
yeah,
We wanted nothing to do with food service industry. This was, coming relatively soon off of COVID on top of it. Like that was just not anything we were interested in. So he presented us with three different options. Two required a brick and mortar, which we didn't really want to have to do either. We happen to live in St. Johns County in Florida, and
mm,
it's a really fast growing area. And rent and all that, like it's expensive to get
yeah,
places like that. So we
hmm,
wanted to take that risk out of it. And that one painter kind of fit our needs. Painting, I know a lot about painting now that I didn't know then. I don't
yeah,
paint,
mm,
um, but I know a lot. But it seemed like something that it was easy enough for us to learn with the right training, and it gave us the opportunity to we chose like the semi absentee model where you know we're kind of running it more owner operator at the moment, but
yeah,
we didn't want to have to leave the house every day and be somewhere from 9 to 5, which if you're a business owner it's really like 7 to 9. So
yeah,
that's kind of how we landed on this. And
okay.
once we started that discovery process and we met the guys at T1P, it
Mhm.
didn't take us very long to realize that was what we were going to go with.
Yeah, amazing. That's awesome. And that was going to be one of my questions, was just, what is the model? Because even if you just look at the home services space and all the concepts and brands that you could potentially get into there, they're all going to vary for like ramp up time. Like you could be, day one getting going with what it is, the service that you're actually delivering, or it could be 90 days, 180 days. So I was curious, if you got when you first signed that contract and you've gone with that kind of semi ownership model where you don't have to be in the field. Talk us through like the personnel. Did you already have personnel in your immediate circle that you could leverage in the field, or did you have to go to market and hire people for that? What did that look like for you guys?
So my husband was still working. So when we opened this, he was still working medical sales. So that was the plan. So it was kind of like me running and getting things organized to get going. But we posted an ad on Indeed and hired a location manager.
Mm,
And our philosophy with the whole thing was we were going to start this all together from like the ground up.
yeah.
So we let's see, we hired him, and his first day was in September of 2022, and we all met at the airport and hopped on an airplane and went to Austin for training. And
Okay.
so that, like, he kind of got thrown into being around us a lot for
Yeah.
those days. But for us, we thought it was a great opportunity because we all had that like same excitement. We weren't at like different levels, right? We're learning things at the same time.
Mhm.
After, our training days, we'd go out for dinner, we'd talk about things. And by the time we left there, we
Yeah.
were all like, we had a plan and we were really excited to get going. And it was a level playing field for all of us.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. And did that GM, I'm going to call him a GM, but did he come from the paintings world? Like he knows not either. Okay.
Mm-mm.
What's his learning curve been like? And what are his responsibilities in the field? Is he on the truck? Is he doing the jobs, or is he more so managing the
No,
personnel? Yeah.
he's so for us, we quickly learned when we were interviewing, and this was just our take. I mean, everybody's got a different take, but we decided we didn't want anybody that had been in the painting field because you
Okay.
kind of start running into that. Well, I haven't been in the painting field, but you have. And so, like, we don't want
Yeah.
our employee to feel like they knew more than we did
Mhm.
and
Yep.
kind of have that, like, head butting right out of the gate. But
Yep.
we knew that we were looking for somebody that had a strong background in customer service
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, if you can't build relationships and have that good customer service, especially in this kind of an industry that's known for terrible customer service,
Yep.
we knew we wouldn't be that successful. So he was a chef, he was a head chef. He
Oh, wow.
managed a grocery store, he was a project manager for another company. So he had that wide background of
Hmm.
managing not only people, but managing
Yeah.
obviously customers who
Yeah.
generally have complaints about stuff. So
Yeah.
so that's where he came from. And his role, he is the primary one out in the field.
Okay.
So he's got a wrapped truck. He does our estimates. He manages projects. I do a lot of the background stuff. Um, I'm on my computer, I feel like all the time. So that's kind of my role
You
is
can do
my role
both.
is networking and details, I say, are my role. I'm always trying to figure out like where are the holes, what are we missing? And
Yeah.
then my husband kind of does a hodgepodge of both of those roles
Hmm.
um, because he has a sales background. So the sales component is, he's used to that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
he's a good person that he's good with customer complaints too, because, he's done that. And a lot of the times when you're dealing with quote unquote complaints, it's generally just a misunderstanding or like the expectations are a little bit different than reality.
Yeah.
So those two deal with that. I stay kind of behind the scenes or talking with other people in the community.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned customer service because I talk about it's a theme across really any conversation I have in the home services space specifically. That I moved into this home about a year ago and immediately knew I needed to get some doors right here installed so I could close off some of the noise. And I was like, all right, French doors, I need a handyman, or what? How do I find this person that can do this work? Because I don't want to allocate my time to do it. And it was a bear. Like it was
Mhm.
completely annoying for me to go online or reach out to people for referrals. And even then, getting in touch with these contractors that would ultimately want this work was just a bad experience. Nobody got back to me. And when they did, it was a long wait. Oh, I need to come out and see it. Then another week goes by, we get the quote, and it's just, and then the project drags on longer than they initially say. And so I have to imagine painting specifically, if you can nail down really those aspects of your business where you respond timely, you pick up the phone, people call, you get on site timely. In your world, I feel like you absolutely need to be on site to see things. Videos and pictures can only help you so much. But, timely quotes, 24 hours later, you get a quote, oh, you're ready to go. Cool. We can have a team start next Monday. Those you follow up, you make sure the customer's happy with the job. Like if you just hit on those things within our industry, that goes for junk removal too, but especially painting. I have to imagine that you're going to be knocking it out of the park. So what's been the biggest surprise with you and your husband since starting the business? Like you've gotten through the training, you feel like you understand the business pretty well, and now you're operating. What's the biggest surprise? Like if you were sitting down with somebody else that was in your shoes a year or two ago evaluating businesses, what would you tell that candidate, that person, that you now know, having gone through the process with that one painter?
I think we have a couple of things. I say because our technical term is that semi-absentee model. I'm like, you can have that going in, like that's the ultimate goal, but that's not reality. I don't
Hmm.
know. We're into like year 2 now, like our second full calendar year, and I don't foresee us being able to have a tiny role in the company anytime soon. Like
Yeah.
we're really hands on. So not being fooled by that idea of, oh, this is going to take off really quick and they'll run it and I'll just do whatever with
Yeah.
whatever time I have. It doesn't work that way. I always say
Mhm.
if semi absentee is working like 12 hours a day, then I'm
Yeah.
not sure what like an owner operator model looks like.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other thing, especially in the service world, I know that service is difficult. Like it's difficult everywhere, but I didn't realize that the bar was set so low that if we actually showed up and sent a quote, that we were ahead of like 80% of the companies.
Yeah.
So it's been very interesting, and those are things we hear over and over and over and over again. We've just did a
Mhm.
job last week.
Yeah.
Like the guy's like, I can't get anybody to even send me the quote. They've been here, but then I've never heard from them again. So I
Yeah.
don't understand.
It's good to hear that you say that because it validates my own thoughts, but it's bad to hear you say that because it means we're at a place in society where people don't get back with each other. But nonetheless, it's a good breakdown. Um, so, you've got this business. What's kind of the ultimate future state for? I know you mentioned you and your husband are very much in it, even though your goal is semi-absentee. But what's the future of your desires with that one painter or other brands local? Do you want to expand outside of St. John's? I think you mentioned that's where you're at.
Yeah, we're St.
What's that
John's,
looking like?
Jacksonville. So for us, I don't necessarily know that we have an ultimate plan yet because we're still kind of getting our feet wet and seeing where we're going. So initially we bought 2 territories, essentially,
Mhm.
right? They were both in Jacksonville. Then we added a third, and now we've added a fourth. So we own basically all of Jacksonville Metro.
Okay.
So we've have 2 open. We're opening our third probably next week. It's just a matter of marketing turning on. But for us, it's not like we own something in Jacksonville and something in Orlando. Like we don't want to own things in different cities.
Hmm.
Initially, we thought when we started, we were like, oh, it'd be nice to be in Jacksonville, and then Savannah's a couple hours away, and then
Hmm.
Charleston's a couple hours away from there.
Yeah.
But once we got going, we're like, I don't even know how. For us, I wouldn't be able to manage anything in other cities. We're
Yeah.
way too hands on to be able to
Mhm.
do that.
What's the van, like the truck, the van count? I guess in painting, it doesn't necessarily matter really about how many trucks you have. I guess it does, but in a certain sense. But like, what's the personnel that you have in each of your units? Do you have 2 contractors doing the jobs? Do you have 6 people that you've got kind of in your within your circle? That because I know it's very difficult, probably from a personnel perspective, to forecast like how much help or how much personnel you need because it's really dependent on the clients you get and the jobs you do or don't have. But on average, like how many people do you carry? And I'll call it on payroll, even though I'm sure a lot of the workers are probably contractors. But like, how many people do you carry on payroll week over week? And how many like trucks, vans do you have out in the field in a single
On
unit?
that side. So we only have one employee, and that's
Okay,
our location manager, and then technically my husband too. But
got it.
um, and then everybody, our painting crews are all subcontractors. That's how this business model works.
Yep.
Um, and we have right now on any given like week, we'll run between I'm trying to think of 3 to 5 in a given week. We've had
Yeah.
some where we've had more, but I
Hmm.
have a list of about 10 crews that we have used
Okay.
that I can call on at any given time to see if they're available. But we have 4 crews that have worked for us since we started.
Got it.
So they they are we call it the pecking order, right? But like they have been with us from the beginning.
Yeah.
That's where those jobs get distributed first. And then if we have more available, we have people that we communicate quite a bit with them, like, oh hey, we know something's coming up, we're going to need you. So
Hmm.
we have some so they have some notice, but I don't think that's uncommon. I think a lot of the subs around here, if we don't have a job this week, they're going to go find a job somewhere else.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the advantage of the model, because I don't have to pay people when it's slow.
Yeah. That's right.
Um,
It's
so
great.
that doesn't sink you really quickly, because that could be a problem, I think.
And did T1P help you in the initial early days of finding that network of people, or was that, kind of grassroots, you and your husband reaching out to, I don't know if you went on Indeed to find these folks, or like, how do you come across painting contractors?
Yeah, so they gave us some tips in training. One of the first ones was go hang flyers in your local Sherwin-Williams store, which we
Okay.
did, and we had a ton of phone calls. And I think pretty much the majority of the people that work with us now, a lot of them found us through there.
Yeah.
But we have great luck, like with our Sherwin-Williams rep.
Mm.
He'll throw somebody out there to us occasionally, like, hey, they're looking for some work. Do you have any room?
Yeah.
Um, and
Awesome.
once you get going in it and you find people that you trust, then sometimes, like one of my subs will have another crew that they know of that's really good, and they'll
Mhm.
they'll invite them to come and talk with us. When we
Yeah.
started, we thought that was going to be the hardest thing for us to do, was
Yeah.
to find the painting crews, and it didn't turn out to be difficult for us
Yeah.
really at all.
That's good to know. I know personnel, and that's also on the consumer side, much like on your internal side, like getting all those what we would consider easy things right, answering the phone, transparent pricing, quick to respond, like doing all that stuff with your employees or your contractors probably goes a long way because they're trying to evaluate what's the best job I can take this week for the most amount of money, and it's not gonna the risk is low for it getting canceled or whatever. And so if they develop that relationship with you where they know every time Gina calls, like it's legit, it's a legit deal, it's a project I can start on Monday, be done by Friday, and I'm getting X dollars, and I can count on that, then they probably, will be more loyal to you than the next guy who probably flakes half the time or, ends up not paying them what they agreed upon. So I
Yeah.
could see it on that side too. What's the average job duration for you guys? We don't need to get into revenue or anything, but just like, is it a week long project, 2 day project? Like, are you doing mostly residential, interior and exterior? Do you dip into commercial at all?
Yeah. So we always say our bread and butter is residential. We do a lot of residential, cabinets, interiors, exteriors, staining, all that kind of stuff. We do some commercial. To date, the majority of the commercial that we've done is interior. It's like
Mhm.
office space and stuff like that, which we
Yeah.
like. Um, but it depends on the day, it depends on the job. But for the most part, we live in an area it's a ton of stucco, which in
Mhm.
stucco paint has to be painted. It fades, so it has to
Yeah.
be painted, like, depending on what you've got on it, 5 to 7 years, could be a little
Mhm.
longer. So those jobs on average would take like 3 to 5 days, depending on the size of the house. So for the
Mhm.
most part, our crews get one job that they work on during the week. And sometimes if it's like we call them our Friday jobs. So maybe the job will take, an exterior will take 4 days, but then we have somebody who wants a bedroom painted, or,
Yeah.
that smaller 1 day job, then
Mhm.
they'll have that for Friday. Some of them will work on Saturday, it just depends. So
Yeah.
on average, they don't really go past a week unless it's like more special circumstance. We work with a restoration company, and those
Mm.
jobs go longer.
Yeah.
Um, but your average job, it's nice to just put somebody on it, and they know they have a job once a week.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, cool. Well, Gina, this has been eye-opening from my side. Somebody who's completely really unaware of the painting world, other than just my own needs here in my house. If you could give any advice to other folks that are maybe in corporate America running W-2 jobs, and they want to take a route that you and your husband took, looking at getting into business ownership, anything come to mind like, hey, I wish I knew this 2 or 3 years ago when I started down this journey, or this about franchising, or this about just business ownership in general? Anything come to mind that you would pass on to somebody else that was chatting with you?
I think for us, we didn't understand the franchising world whatsoever prior
Mm,
to responding to the message on LinkedIn. Like, you know of franchises, but each franchise runs itself in a different way anyways. But for
mm,
us, you know, we basically got handed the playbook. So instead of taking 2 or 3 years to build up our own business, they gave us the training and the tools, like, this is how you can get going. And we had a job. I mean, we were working within the first month we were open.
mm. Awesome.
So finding something that provides you with that playbook, if that's kind of the step you want to take, I
Hmm.
think is helpful because it doesn't take as long to like scale your business and grow.
Yeah.
Yes, there's royalties. You have to consider that kind of stuff. And sometimes that's, it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes when that money's going out the door. But we try to look at it as, if I've got a lot of money going out this week, then that means we had a good week.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
um, I personally feel like, I don't know, I'm glad we explored it and I'm glad we stepped out of our comfort zone, and now it is ours to build. And we'll see where it goes. I
Yes.
feel like we don't we're just kind of on the journey, and we'll see where it takes us,
Hmm.
and we'll go from there.
That sounds great. Well, I appreciate the time, and we'll be watching from afar, eager to see the growth of that one painter in general. And I know the guys there at corporate are doing a lot in the home services space. Like I said, from a branding perspective, I just love everything that they're doing. So kudos to you for joining that brand. And maybe 4 kids, maybe you'll have, maybe some of them will come into the business and be helpful for you. But yeah, Gina, nonetheless, thank you so much. If you want folks to find you in your local area, what's the best way for them to find you or that one painter there for any of their painting job needs?
We're called That One Painter First Coast. So any of like Instagram, Facebook, even like the website, it's That One Painter First Coast, and we have a lot of cool stuff on socials. Just it's our jobs.
Yeah,
So
totally.
it's the before and afters, and you can get some ideas, color wise and what people are doing. So
Yeah,
that's kind of where we hang out.
amazing. Well, thanks so much. We look forward to keeping up with you, like I said, and wish you the best in 2024.
Thanks. You too.